Rarely wrong, always right. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Friends, welcome to the program. Okay, email sam@whatsrightshow.com. sam@whatsrightshow.com. On X, @whatsrightsam, that's where you can reach me. Of course, mentioning this horrific shooting in Grand Blanc, Michigan yesterday, I was tweeting about this in real time as information was coming in. Deeply, obviously interested and touched. I have a lot of Mormon family, and I just this was a tough one. It was a tough one, and in particular, let me say this too about the shooter. When we talk about political motives, it's not a question of how many guys did the right-winger kill versus the left-winger. Right-wing violence and left-wing violence, when we talk about this, we are clearly discussing the extent that we have politically targeted, acts of violence perpetrated in the name of a political belief. Now, this person had mental issues, no question about that. The mother, I read a story, it was kind of a tragic thing. The mother wrote a post on Facebook about a week ago where she had an interaction. It was clearly about her son, talking about how some people just will not take any responsibility for their actions, and they're unreasonable and unmoored from reality, and this and that. Made me think back to the piece that this was a Daily Caller piece, beginning of the month, about Trump's plan to bring back insane asylums. And this was Daily Caller White House correspondent Regan Reese. He had to sit down with Trump right at the beginning of the month and talked an hour about this. And apparently the president spoke at length about the D.C. cleanup, other cities. And he said, listen, we've got to reopen the institutions. We have people out there who are criminally, mentally ill. And I thought about this a little bit, and I thought, imagine you're a parent. You have an adult child, or you have a spouse. You have a brother, you have a sister. Somebody close to you is beginning to lose their marbles. And they've got guns. They've mentioned violence. They've made it clear that they are capable of doing harm. What do you do? And I think one of the critical things is it's not just about opening up horrible mental hospitals. You gotta open up places that will be the type of place you would not hesitate to send a loved one. Because you don't want to send a child into a place where they're going to get killed. You don't want to send them into some horrible, Russia-like, institution where, you may never see them again. But on the other hand, something has to be done here with people who are unwell, and their mental illness needs to be treated. Now, one other thing in the sort of cacophony of responses here from various people is nobody's mentioning the fact that we have blown so much money as a society on paying for an illegal immigrant invasion while at the same time giving precious few resources to our veterans with PTSD. And that's one of the most heartbreaking parts of this whole story. Both of these shooters, both yesterday and the day before, the shooter in Michigan and North Carolina, both veterans. And certainly from what I've read, the North Carolina veteran had all sorts of, insane musings, and it was known that he had PTSD. So these are the things, that we, need to have a conversation about. But again, I mean, I don't know. It seems to me, he had some animus, and I mentioned this before, some animus against Latter-day Saints, against Mormons. And it links to some woman that he dated that apparently the relationship didn't work out. So I'm sure more will come out about this in the coming days. But I do want to, when we come back, I've got to get into this government shutdown, this looming government shutdown. I think the Dems believe that they've got Trump in a politically vulnerable place. And I just don't see it at all. And I actually see this as something playing out, exactly the way Trump always intended from the very beginning. So when we come back, I want to carefully unpackage this. And of course, also the indictment against James Comey. Many people heralding this as the first step in the pushback against all of the lawfare perpetrated and scandal, frankly, perpetrated by the deep state against Trump. So we're going to look at that a little bit in greater detail today. So, all right, we'll get there. We will get there. Sam@whatsrightshow.com. Email me if you've got any questions. And of course, this hour of the program brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
I'm the best.
Personal injury law has been the same for a long time.
The best.
Big egos, greed, and sleazy schemes. We've had enough. Welcome to Sam & Ash, the new standard for personal injury law, where things are done the right way, because you deserve a team that delivers real support and results. When you have both, your whole world can change. Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
It's such a predictable playbook, friends. Don't be fooled by it. Of course, I'm referencing the Democrats and the looming government shutdown. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Welcome back. What's Right show brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, the only law firm to trust for your personal injury case. Do not delay. Don't wait. Don't put it off. Get legal advice today so your case can get moving in the right direction. Don't trust the insurance company. Trust the firm that will handle it right for you. Sam and Ash Injury Law, 702-820-1234, because you deserve what's right. Now, this shutdown was, okay, if you haven't heard, the Democrats are screaming that the Republicans are going to shut the government down. Now, as far as Trump and the Republicans in Congress are concerned, at least most of the Republicans in Congress, they see this shutdown as an opportunity. They see this, it's an opportunity to slim down the government. And you're already seeing stories, and I just saw one here the other moment. It was a breaking alert about an hour ago that about 100,000 federal employees are preparing to hand in their formal resignations, knowing that this shutdown very well could put their jobs ultimately in jeopardy. And so this is something that the Trump administration has wanted. And so the Democrats are pulling out all of the stops to make this a full-blown political crisis, but the crisis is only on the Democratic side. Let me put it to you another way. The shutdown, look, remember the One Big Beautiful Bill? The One Big Beautiful Bill that people like Massey, and Rand Paul, they fought it tooth and nail. It was this big government bloat. And, I remember back when it was being discussed, I told you there's a number of reasons why we needed to support it. And the top of which was to ensure that Trump's agenda was funded. Well, when it was passed, Trump's agenda was funded. Everything Trump wants to accomplish, basically in the foreseeable future, has already been paid for via the OBBB. The One Big Beautiful Bill has done that. Trump always knew that they kicked the can down the road with a simple CR, that it would come up again and again and again. And each time he would be held, ransom basically by the Democrats using the Senate filibuster. It's the only, tool that the Democrats have. So he got everything funded for his agenda. And now the Dems, I mean, they could certainly come up with their own plan, but they can't stop the wall with the shutdown. They can't stop deportations with the shutdown. They can't stop tax cuts, deregulation, or increased military pay without a shutdown. So there it is. And this is why everybody is freaking out. Look, this is just Democrats in the last 24 hours on national television talking about the shutdown and how bad this is going to be.
The least we can do, the bare minimum that we can do, would be to pass a continuing resolution to keep the doors open and the lights on.
A government shutdown of any duration would harm hardworking Americans and our economy. Shutdowns cost taxpayers billions of dollars per week. They cost businesses money, and they force an unnecessary disruption of many vital services.
The truth is that shutting down the government is a serious and dangerous action that we must do everything possible to prevent.
If the government shuts down, it will be average Americans who suffer most. A government shutdown means seniors who rely on Social Security could be thrown into chaos as the Social Security Administration limits certain services like benefit verifications or fixing errors in payments. Our veterans could see regional VA offices shut down and support services put on hold.
I don't think they actually care about any of this stuff, folks. If they did, again, they wouldn't have been funding all of the sheer insanity that they spent money on over the last 4 years. The shutdown here threatens the last vestiges of the Democrats' pay-to-play scheme. The last trickle of money to the NGOs, to the non-governmental organizations, that then laundered those funds right back into DNC coffers and individual campaigns. Gone. All these high-paying, no-show jobs, plus the money for the agitators out there. And on top of it, just as this money's being cut, just as the last trickle of this money is basically running out, all the Democrats can do is threaten the bad PR of a government shutdown, knowing full well that at the end of the day, the stuff that we want to have happen, a secure border, safety in our cities, right? The military spending, all of that is done. It's already been paid for the foreseeable future. So and by the way, on the heels of Trump getting a big victory in court, which basically the Supreme Court came down and said, you absolutely can cut discretionary spending. It's within the rights of the executive branch to do that. Slapping down a lower court order that he, pay out money on, whatever it was, to various different NGOs. This is all really terrible. Chuck Schumer, of course, very outspoken about this and fearing, I think, the worst.
God forbid the Republicans shut the government down. The American people will know it's on their back. First, they're in charge. They have the House, they have the Senate, they have the presidency, so they know it's in charge. They're in charge. Second, everyone knows that you need a bipartisan negotiation to get this done.
A bipartisan negotiation. Number one, Chuck Schumer and Elizabeth Warren and everybody else on the Democratic side of Congress busy calling Trump people fascists and Nazis. Doesn't build a lot of goodwill. So all of a sudden, this is to my trained ears, folks. When I hear the Democrats talking about bipartisanship, it means there's something that they want. And trust me, it's not the VA funding. It's not money for seniors. Their world as they knew it in 2024, pre-Donald Trump 2.0, is over. It's done. And they're freaking the hell out. Now, I'm just telling you what it is. Now, remember, it was Harry Reid. It was Harry Reid that ended the filibuster. It was Dirty Harry, and they did it at a point when it was expeditious for the Dems. The 60-40, right? That's the 60-40 majority right? So they made it just quickly, you get quickly end the filibuster now, and so Republicans can move forward. Now, Murkowski, are you asking about? Well, there's been some reports, I don't know how credible they are, that Lisa Murkowski of Alaska would defect to the Democrats. But I don't think that's actually real. I saw it. A number of places reported on it over the weekend. But I don't know that that's necessarily going to happen. Lisa Murkowski, of course, is a longtime senator from Alaska. Alaska's pretty conservative, and the Republican Party there has censured her for her position. Remember, she lost the last Republican primary. She lost it and then was a write-in candidate in the general election and won that because a bunch of Democrats voted for her. I don't know that as a stepping out of the Republican Party is going to save her, but regardless, you're going to get a few Republicans who are going to want to stick it to Trump, including Murkowski and probably Susan Collins of Maine. But as far as the rest of the crew, this is not going anywhere. So Trump is going to get this to a maximum pressure point, and every time you see a news story that says, "Oh, Trump is golfing," you see those over there. Trump is playing another game of golf while the country is headed into a shutdown. Now, one thing about Trump, and you know this, right? The guy works and works and works. Look at his schedule. Like last week at the UN, it was basically sun up to sundown. Well, sundown, forget sundown, till 11 or 12 at night. The day he went to the UN, he got back to the White House at almost midnight. He's working. The reason he's playing golf is because he does not care how this goes. His agenda that he was elected to put into effect is funded. It's the Democrats that want something. And in a negotiation, if you don't need anything and the other side needs everything, what do you think is the right thing to do? You get them right up to the brink and maybe they give you something up. This is precisely what's occurring. I'll get to Comey. I will get to Comey next. One big takeaway, when we come back, I'll get to James Comey and the indictment. One big takeaway for me, every time James Comey opens his mouth, I am astounded how someone as weak, as fundamentally weak as him, was able to make it to one of the most important positions in the United States government. Blows my mind. So just hang tight. Let me get to this indictment, because there's a lot of conservatives out there, so-called conservatives, that are saying that this case against Comey isn't good, that it's dead on arrival. So I'll tell you what I think of that when we come back. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Well, yeah, it's the Andy McCarthy piece, of course. That's the one I'm talking about. Sam Mirejovsky here, Nevada's favorite recovering Californian, behind the What's Right microphone. Friends, welcome back. Okay, James Comey's indictment came down. I've got it here in my hands. This was filed on the 25th, so at the end of last week. And there are two counts in this indictment. And just quickly here, let me just explain things, how these things work. An indictment is very simple. It's an allegation of a criminal act and is a formal charging document, which you have to file as the prosecutor. Doesn't matter if you're a county prosecutor, state prosecutor, federal prosecutor. This happens to be a federal prosecution in the Eastern District of Virginia, Alexandria Division. So you file this, and it is your declaration of how to proceed against a particular defendant. Now, these indictments, I've got it here in my hands. Those of you watching the SamCam, the way these indictments they work is you can just file an indictment as a prosecutor, but carries more weight when you present to a grand jury and you get the grand jury to issue the indictment. It's called a true bill. So you go to the grand jury. So this was all submitted to a grand jury. And as I understand it, although the information is not exactly clear, as I understand it, there was a count that the grand jury rejected. And now, but here, bear with me here, because this is something that I find interesting. So they rejected a count, but they let two stand. One of them is not technically a perjury charge. It is what is this? I want to be very, very precise. This is a knowingly making a false statement to Congress, testimony to Congress. Now, the second part of this is a obstruction of a congressional proceeding. So it's charged as 18 U.S.C. 1001 and 18 U.S.C. 1505. So this is it. This is the indictment. It's 2 pages. It's very straightforward. Now, one thing that isn't, it's got James Comey name in it, but it has 3 people. They're referred to as person 1, person 2, person 3. We don't exactly know who they are, though we suspect we know who they are. I'll get to that in a minute. This whole thing stems from very simple, straightforward facts. James Comey, on a number of occasions, was hauled into Congress to talk about Crossfire Hurricane, okay? For example, one of the investigations into Trump being compromised by the Ruskies. Now, the whole thing was a scam. It was a setup. And we go back all the way to, Comey going to Trump Tower when Trump was, president-elect. This is in January of 2017. Going there and talking to him about the PP tape. Oh my goodness, Mr. Trump, President-elect Trump. I have to tell you, man to man, there's a little allegation out there that and you guys know the story. I'm not going to get into all those things. And then as soon as Comey was done telling Trump this, he ran downstairs to a waiting FBI car, had a laptop open, and immediately wrote a contemporaneous report. He filed a report on his conversation with Trump. The only reason to do this would be if Trump was a target of an investigation, which, of course, Comey long denied. And then, following that moment, there was leak after leak after leak, all designed to undermine, damage, injure the Trump presidency. And this was just going on and on and on. So he gets asked under oath, right? Technically under oath, testifying to Congress, gets asked a number of times by Republicans, Grassley, Ted Cruz, and others. Did you cause to leak? Did you knowingly leak? Did you instruct somebody to leak any of this information about Trump from the FBI? And he was asked about classified information, non-classified. This question was asked so many different times. And every time, Comey answered, no. In fact, here, do we have... Okay, let me play. This is one where Grassley's asking him. Here's...
Director Comey, have you ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters relating to the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation?
Never.
Never.
Question 2 on relatively related. Have you ever authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation?
No.
Has any classified information relating to President Trump or his associates been declassified and shared with the media?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. But here's what we know. If you get into the Arctic Haze documents, Arctic Haze is one of the code names for all this nonsense going on. Comey hired a close buddy of his, a Columbia University assistant professor, law professor, who was a friend and a former colleague of his. The guy's name is Daniel Richman. We've talked about this before. He hires Richman, and he basically brings him in as a special government employee at the FBI. And he literally, this is all documented. He literally hires this guy, puts him in this position so he can grant him top security clearances so that he can confer with his buddy, his friend, Richmond, give him sensitive information, discuss sensitive matters. And then he also charges Richmond to be a media affairs spokesman of sorts for the FBI and the Department of Justice without consulting the FBI or the Department of Justice's offices of public affairs. They've got a whole department for this. He became, this Richmond guy, essentially a little backdoor consultant, leak spiller for Comey personally. Let me put this another way. Comey basically appoints this friend of his, becomes a special government employee just so he can share classified information. And Comey thinks that this is a kind of a cute, fancy way to insulate himself from any accusations that he's improperly disseminating classified information. After all, he can't share it with this guy. But it's a classic case of being too clever by half. By doing this now, Comey created a trail of evidence that he lied under oath, going back to 2020 and before. It's, in my estimation, an open and shut case. And, there are whatever defects of pleadings in this document, going back to Andy McCarthy and his long National Review article about how bad this thing is. I'm telling you, I think Comey's goose is cooked. Sam Mirejovsky back in a moment. Well, yeah, this was something really gross over the weekend. The death of Assata Shakur. This is a terrorist who executed in cold blood a New Jersey state trooper and then fled to Cuba, okay? Apparently, she's quite the hero for the American left. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT, over the weekend, following her death, which I think occurred on Friday. The teachers union, they came out with a nice amount of support. Even Mickey Sherrill, who's running for governor in New Jersey. She didn't say much about this, but other people around her retweeted it. The Chicago Teachers Union put a post up on X remembering the life and legacy of Assata Shakur. She died on the 25th. All right, so just an absolute dumpster fire. And she was a hero of BLM. I mean, this is the fundamental problem of the new left. This just, you know her history, right? She was she had a $2 million FBI bounty on her head. All right, she's the godmother to Tupac Shakur, of all things. Had a whole number of criminal acts. There was an attempted robbery in 1971. There's a Queens bank robbery later that year. She was sought for questioning. A church robbery in 1972. There was a grenade attack on a police car. And then, of course, Trooper Werner Forster's murder following a traffic stop May 2nd, 1973. And then in 1979, members of the Black Liberation Army, posing as visitors, stormed the jail that she was at, took 2 guards hostage, commandeered a prison van, and broke her out. So she disappeared, emerged in 1984 in Cuba as a guest of Fidel Castro. The left loves her. And it's, they always say you're the company you keep. This whole story here is, as the kids say, cringe. Her writings became a rallying cry during the Black Lives Matter movement. Protesters during the Summer of George in 2020 carry signs saying, "Assata taught me." They had Black Lives Matter Grassroots Inc., which is a collective of racial justice activists from around the U.S. They paid a tribute to her. The Chicago teachers, this the whole thing is an absolute mess. So anyway, I'm just, it's not the least bit of a surprise to me that that the left has adopted this and is running with it. Now, well, yeah, they did get there are a handful. Yes, there are a handful of Democrats that opposes, but a lot of the loudest, most shrill voices are calling her a hero. And this is the same group of people that want to firebomb ICE facilities, that want to attack cops, that want to defund the police. You want to talk about left-wing violence? They revere literally a cop-killing terrorist like Assata Shakur. And then they try to turn it around and lecture us and say that, that it's right-wing violence is a scourge of the country. So anyway, this just, to me, I had to mention this and get at it. Now, okay. I got a quick email here about the Comey indictment. Bruce asking me if this indictment prevents the Department of Justice from looking at more offenses, or is this it? In other words, if this is the indictment, right? If this is it, are these charges all that Comey can be charged with? And here's the short answer, Bruce. The good news is no. What this does, I suspect that they rushed this indictment and got it filed because the 5-year statute of limitations on these two acts was set to expire within days. If there is other stuff that Comey did that falls within a statute of limitations period, they can still charge it. And a lot of people are saying, well, okay, he did stuff in 2017. He did stuff in 2016. He did stuff in 2018. And it goes back further than some of these 5-year statute of limitations period. What will be interesting to me is where the government goes to next. Because, if they start to put together a RICO case, a conspiracy case, and they go and they basically put together a group of individuals that they claim has committed a series of unlawful acts, and that they've conspired together, and that it goes back a period of time, you can link those acts together. And as long as there is at least one criminal act that falls within the statute of limitations period, you can bring in the entire conspiracy. So that's what I see here. I think that is likely what's going to happen. So I think they wanted to get one clean indictment in. By the way, Comey went up and you hear his ridiculous thing that he posted. I got the video here. Here's what Comey posted after the indictment came through, and it's beyond pathetic.
My family and I have known for years that there are costs to standing up to Donald Trump, but we couldn't imagine ourselves living any other way. We will not live on our knees, and you shouldn't either. Somebody that I love dearly recently said that fear is the tool of a tyrant, and she's right. But I'm not afraid, and I hope you're not either. I hope instead you are engaged, you are paying attention, and you will vote like your beloved country depends upon it, which it does. My heart is broken for the Department of Justice, but I have great confidence in the federal judicial system, and I'm innocent. So let's have a trial and keep the faith.
Okay, can I say something? If I were to be charged tomorrow with some completely untrue, spurless accusation, as he claimed, something that was just beyond the pale, absolutely factually wrong, legally and factually wrong, I would get up And I would say exactly that. What is alleged here simply did not happen. Now, I cannot get into details. My lawyers, I can't talk about it. There's ongoing, but I can categorically say none of this occurred, and I'm incensed. The minute that you begin talking about, like Comey's doing here, I need you to vote like our republic depends on it, and making it political tells me that everything he does is political, which is the indictment. At the core of this, Comey stopped being a cop and was a politician. He stopped being the top law enforcement officer, the head of the FBI, while in that position, and became essentially an auxiliary of the Democratic Party, at least insofar as he decided that Trump was unfit for office. And the most upsetting thing to me, the part that galls me, like big time, is that these people, Comey included, in that tape specifically, keep talking about democracy and democracy and democracy. Meanwhile, you and I and millions of other Americans voted for Trump in 16, in 20, and in 24. And whatever your thoughts are on, 2020, certainly in 16 and 2024, Trump won, which means democracy selected him. And a small group of entitled, privileged, but powerful individuals began to almost immediately, as Trump was surging in the polls, conspire against who would be the people's choice for president. And they cloak themselves in this fakery of being defenders of democracy. Democracy, for the umpteenth time, to these people, to Comey and to Clinton and to Obama, does not actually mean that you and I get to vote. We only get a say when we pick the candidate that they approve. And the minute that we don't, it's not about democracy. Suddenly it's about preserving the country, or having a country, because we, the people, cannot actually be trusted to do what's right for America. This is what really galls me about the whole thing. Now, I didn't mention, by the way, the person 1, person 2, person 3. There's a suspicion one of these is Hillary Clinton. And there's actual talk now about Hillary Clinton being next, that there's some indictment looming for Hillary. And I'll say this, I am upset. I'm upset that Comey wasn't immediately bundled up and arrested like Roger Stone and others who were frog-marched by the Biden Gestapo, 6 a.m, FBI raids at their homes with camera crews in tow. I'm ready for that treatment of these people. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Remember, they told us no one's above the law. So now it's their time or turn to wear it. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT.
The Salmon Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
Folks, I have to tell you, don't rejoice too much about the indictment against Comey. More has to happen. Otherwise, we're dead in the water. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. There's been a chorus of Democrats coming to Comey's defense. Everyone from John Brennan with his own, somewhat defensive language. I didn't do anything wrong, he claims. I think fearing because, he may be next. Anna Navarro, of course, The View, all the women on The View. Okay. In that whole sea of expected proclamations about how unjust it is for James Comey to face any accountability, there's this bit here on CNN where Eric Swalwell lays out a plan to prosecute everybody on our side when the Democrats come back to power. This is frightening. And this is the part that we need to be paying very close attention to.
Well, first, we are making it clear that we're going into the majority a year from now. We have every intention to do that, and so we will bring oversight, accountability. We will subpoena the Department of Justice, but also private actors who have done these drug deals with the administration, college campuses, entertainment companies, law firms. And so accountability is coming. And so, one, it's all coming out. Two, I hope that deters people from doing more of these deals, these one-offs with the president. One other point, though, on Comey, Kate, this happened when Donald Trump was president. So if you're trying to tell me this is not politically motivated, the statement that they're referring to where he allegedly lied, Donald Trump was president. So why didn't you indict him then?
Oh, well, first of all, that last part's absurd. Why didn't you do it earlier? If it was so because at the time, Trump was fighting you, Eric Swalwell, and every one of your little pathetic cronies, fighting a hurricane worth, literally crossfire hurricane worth of complete and total BS. You guys tied him up in two, not one, but two efforts to remove him from office and a slew of investigations, including the Mueller investigation, the independent counsel, so-called. And that was all put into place because Trump had the wrong, in retrospect, very clear, the wrong attorney general coming out of the gate. Okay, so that's the answer there. But the first part of what he says, what Swalwell says, ought to alarm the hell out of us. We Republicans, even now, I think we're underestimating, A, how much the left hates this, and B, how perfectly willing they are to break every law in the book and lie to everyone's faces about how they're the good guys. And they are so convinced of their moral superiority. They are on television this morning, as recently as, talking about exactly what kind of punitive retribution they're going to bring down on Republicans and anybody basically that aids and abets Donald Trump, meaning anyone that works with a duly elected president, anyone that cooperates with an agenda voted for by a majority of Americans. And Eric Swalwell, Mr. Chitty Chitty, Fang, guy, sleeping with the Chinese spy, Mr. 50 IQ points, is telling you point blank that when they get into power, they are going to screw with everyone. Remember, these are people who talk about democracy. When I check in with people who are, and by the way, Trump approval ratings last week were up in the 50s again. So, I mean, I'm not saying polling is everything. The only poll that really matters is election day. But on election day, Trump won it. And he won it handily. 7 out of 7 swing states. These people talk as though Trump did some sort of military junta takeover of the country. Pay attention to what these people are, the way that they carry on. You really would think that this was some sort of a Pinochet-style takeover. And I know I'm smiling here because I like to, maintain good humor about things, but these people terrify me. Resist the urge that we Republicans have and have had over the many years whenever we get into power to go, oh, okay, now we're going to be the nice guys. When Democrats are in power, they aren't nice. They don't care about precedent. They don't care about the Constitution. They don't care about right and wrong. None of it matters. And then the minute that they lose, they go, but decorum. Oh my goodness, this is not how we do things. This is a democracy. This is not what we do in the United States of America. It's just a clown show. I know. I get texts. I know. But influential people, and they tell me, Sam, you got to tone it down a little bit. Now's not the time. We got to bring down the temperature. The temperature is up because of the left. I saw somewhere a Democrat lawmaker from California. His name is Weiner. He's the guy who's the number one proponent for kids getting, their genitals mutilated. He did an interview over the weekend. I don't have the clip here, but he did an interview where he said, we will, if you want us to stop calling you fascists, meaning Republicans, you want us to stop calling you fascists. Stop being one. That's where they're at. Yet these same people will psych you and me out. Although by the way, we're not susceptible to this, but they'll try to browbeat us into quote unquote being civil. Yet they turn around with that kind of stuff. You know what? If you don't want us to call you a Nazi, then don't be a Nazi. This is where they're at. The only way Eric Swalwell and Weiner and everybody else get stopped is if we take the next 3.5 years and absolutely crush these people into a fine powder, legally speaking. They have to be held accountable for all of their crimes. Rarely wrong, always right. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Greetings, friends. Welcome back. Sam@what'srightshow.com is my email. Sam@what'srightshow.com. What's Right Sam on X, formerly known as Twitter. Okay. Was I thinking of this bizarre outburst? Not that bizarre, not out of the realm of what we've been seeing by Scott Weiner in California, state senator, who is known for being one of the most rabid Democrats in the state of California, which really puts you at the cutting edge of lunacy, to be blunt. He's the one who said, yeah, if you want us to stop calling you fascists, stop being fascists, to MAGA Republicans. And it's this is the dehumanizing language intended to allow violence against conservatives. This all started in the wake of Trump getting elected in 2016. Remember, there was a white nationalist, I think his name was Richard Spencer. He got punched during an interview, and it was in January, right around the time Trump was sworn in. And then the media immediately began doing all these pieces, these articles, where they floated the idea that, asking basically if it was justified to use violence against Nazis. Remember Vice? Vice, it's still up. There's a piece. We asked an ethicist if it's okay to punch Nazis in the face. Cracked 3 days later. So, are we allowed to just punch Nazis now? It's complicated, they said. Mother Jones, the same day, the long history of Nazi punching. And the following month in Medium, punching Nazis totally works. At the end of that year, at the end of the first year of Trump's first term in office, the Cato Institute published a study that found that 51% of strong liberals said it's morally acceptable to punch Nazis. This is why, for the last 8 years, they've been calling us Nazis. This is the problem with the left. They always try to redefine words. So a Nazi is no longer someone who is building death camps and putting Jews, gypsies, and homosexuals in them. Of course, they're political enemies as well. Nazis are no longer people who wear swastikas and are followers of Adolf Hitler. Now, through a slow but steady process, the left has redefined the word to mean someone who supports Donald Trump. And you know this is true. This is exactly where they've gone. And they've done it in order to justify violence. It's not okay. Words matter. Definitions matter. And this has been this normalization, this slow and steady creep of making it acceptable to be violent toward conservatives in America has been done. It's been done by design, and there has been a concerted effort to get to this place. How do you go from punching a vile, admittedly vile, white supremacist like Richard Spencer to shooting a moderate, wonderful, loving, God-fearing man like Charlie Kirk? It's heartbreaking. And I won't let them get away with it. None of us can. And then you look at how they downplay Antifa violence. The Anti-Defamation League just added TPUSA to their glossary of extremism and hate, while at the same point, this is what they write about Antifa. You ready? This is how Antifa is described by the ADL. Quote, a decentralized, leaderless movement composed of loose collections of groups, networks, and individuals who are vigorously opposed to fascism. They're focused on countering right-wing extremists, both online and on the ground. While some Antifa adherents have engaged in violence or vandalism at rallies and events, this is not the norm, despite disinformation campaigns that suggest otherwise. You and I both know that's simply not true. Absolutely, patently false. Look at these ICE attacks. Look at the attack. Look at Portland, Oregon. Look at the stuff that's been going on. We had feds disrupted what could have been a devastatingly fatal coordinated attack, found explosives outside the federal facility, guns. I mean, this is, and again, these are the people, these people are celebrating over the weekend, memorializing Assata Shakur for her bravery, her leadership, her social justice causes. She's a cop killer. That's what they sympathize with. That's really the people out there normalizing, calling conservatives Nazis, are at the same breath celebrating a domestic terrorist and a cop killer. The past 4 months, just in the last 4 months here, against ICE facilities alone, from Dallas to Illinois, Washington in Yakima, Alvarado, Texas, Portland, Oregon, we had several, San Diego, Los Angeles, Omaha, Newark. Non-stop violence, but of course, their violence is acceptable, is permissible, because they're fighting Nazis, literally. And then these people turn around and actual victims of the Nazis, aka Jews, are being, what's the left doing there? We have some odd displays of anti-Semitism, I think, on the right now as well, which obviously disturbs me. Certainly anti-Israel sentiment, but on the left, it's just become rampant. Israel exists as an answer against actual Nazis, and yet if you poll Democrats, they don't even believe Israel has a right to exist. And when I say Democrats, I'm talking about the New Left, the Zohran Mamdamis and the AOCs. Look at the squad. These are the people that have traction within the Democratic Party. Chuck Schumer's halfway to dead, politically speaking, maybe actually literally. It's not him that's the future of the Democratic Party. It's AOC. It's Ilhan Omar. It's Mamdani. They don't believe Israel has a right to exist. And yet they turn around, point fingers at you and I, and call us Nazis. I want to take a break now because I want to get to actually the events today at the White House, the peace plan proposed by Trump. Trump had a meeting with Netanyahu. Speaking of trying to make sense of this, I want to take you through this here step by step. But this, folks, we live in dangerous times. This worries me. It really, truly does. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. All right, we've got some idea now of the Trump peace plan for Gaza and for the war. Let me take you through it here. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Netanyahu at the White House, meeting with Trump. It was apparently a good meeting. A lot of people, even on our side, screaming about this. This is what you want. First of all, Israel, for those of you in the back, Israel is and remains a guardian of Western civilization in one of the most dangerous parts of the world. I gotta put this always into perspective. If I think of existential threats to life as we know it today, Israel ain't one of them. Hell, it's not even China, and I fear China more than just about anything. It's Islam, and it is taking over the West rather quickly because we have allowed suicidal empathy to be our guiding light. I'm not going to relitigate that. I'm just telling you that's what it is, and you either agree with me or you don't. It's fine. Take time and observe what's happening. Look at what's occurring in Michigan. Look at what's occurring in deep red Texas. Right now, Islam's still a minority group in the U.S., but I generally like to take people at their word. When they tell me that they intend to reorder the political structure of the United States of America once they become a majority, when they tell me they want Sharia law, when I learn what Sharia law is, and I'm sorry I don't need Tucker Carlson to downplay it for me, I'm a little bit terrified, to say the least. So I'm glad that Trump is engaging with Netanyahu. I'm glad and, of course, want the war to end. I'm not pro-war. And I certainly want the U.S. to be at the forefront of bringing parties to the table, but I can tell you right now that there is zero incentive for Hamas to take this deal. Before I even get to it, I can just tell you zero incentive, because Hamas is getting everything that they want by dragging this war out, killing their own people, sacrificing them to the war, and getting support from deranged leftists and even some deranged conservatives for it. So the key points of the White House deal is this. Gaza will be de-radicalized, so there's some steps to be taken to that end. It's going to be redeveloped. Trump is excited for that part. If both sides agree to the proposal, the war will immediately end. Within 72 hours of Israel publicly accepting the agreement, all hostages alive and deceased will be returned. Once all the hostages are released, Israel will release 250 life sentence prisoners, but plus think, what is it, 1,700 Gazans detained after October 7th. Hamas members who commit to peaceful coexistence and decommission their weapons will be given amnesty. I don't know if Israel's going to go for that. Those who wish to leave Gaza will be provided safe passage to other countries. Upon acceptance of this agreement, full aid will be immediately sent. Aid distribution will proceed without interference. Gaza will be governed temporarily by a technocratic, apolitical board. My understanding, Tony Blair is going to come in and do some of this. And there's more details here. I'm not going to bore you with it all. My gut on this, if I have to be honest, is it's such a good deal for Hamas that all Israel has to do is accept it. And if people were actually logical out there, then Hamas really wouldn't really have any colorable argument for why they shouldn't accept it as well. But what I foresee here is that Israel will, if Israel accepts this, Hamas will still come up with a reason to reject this proposal. And the radical, crazy left-wingers running around the world who are pro-Palestine are going to, I think, are still going to find a reason to hate Israel, because it's really not about the Gaza war. It's about their hatred of Israel and Jews, frankly. It's an intractable position to be in. Well, I don't you take your, you think that Greta and the flotilla that is headed to Tel Aviv or to the West Bank to break you think that the flotilla people are going to say, but Gaza rejected the Gazan government, the Hamas, they rejected this beautiful deal that basically gave them everything. And so now we're going to be on the side of Israel. This is not going to happen. But putting it out there I think is smart. The Hamas will, could among them, some of the remaining reasonable people out there could end up really hurting themselves if they don't accept it. By the way, Theo Von over the weekend tweeted out a support for Palestine. This is the problem. Theo Von is a comedian, right? He's a Polish ancestry guy. He can be a funny guy, but he's a pothead. And he has, of course, he's got a huge following. He had Trump on his podcast in the run-up to the election. He's a conservative guy, MAGA guy. Tweets out support for Palestine. It's mind-numbing to me how people who have never picked up a book, people who just lived in the social media world and do a lot of drugs on top of it, are being taken seriously to any extent, for their geopolitical views. The blowback that, by the way, Theo Von got was so bad that the next night he had an appearance at a comedy club in New York. They were filming a Netflix comedy special, and he had a complete breakdown on stage. Well, they had to keep redoing the jokes. They weren't landing. 2/3 of the people in the audience left. Just complete. It was just a complete breakdown. Then there was a video, which was, I hope it was taken out of context, because this, of course, would be tragic. He said, "I'm just trying not to take my life." I don't think you can joke about suicide. It's just not funny to me at all. So I don't know what he was saying there, and I hope he's okay. But we really, as conservatives, need to get real about this hating Israel thing. I understand. America first does not mean Israel last, or Israel number 10 or 12 or 15. I'm all about America first. Give me an America first agenda. I'm all for it. And you know I've been a loud advocate for it here. But then after America, I want to look around the world and I want to say, who is out there fighting my worst enemies? And I look around the world and I go, you know what? There's a little tiny country in the heart of the Middle East that is fighting my absolute worst nightmare of nightmares. They're fighting Hezbollah. They're fighting Hamas. And what do Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran, what do they all have in common? They want to see my world, my America, my Western civilization, my Judeo-Christian society that I live in eradicated. So to me, it is wholly unproductive, massively unproductive, when we have people on our side, and people that I think are logical, some of them. I think Tucker Carlson is a smart, logical guy, somebody I once deeply admired. I just don't understand devolving into this, anti-Israel position. You can have your fault with Netanyahu. You can have your fault with the Israeli government. But the idea that we've become so antagonistic to a country that's fighting some of our battles, a lot of our battles, to me just seems completely foolish. So these are precarious times. And by the way, made worse, following what's going on in Russia and in Ukraine, Trump has authorized the use of long-range Tomahawk missiles to be used by Ukraine against Russia. And some are calling this as a major escalation in the war, obviously an intent to get Putin to come to the table and negotiate. Trump obviously losing all sense that Putin wants to bring the war to a conclusion. So expect things to accelerate there. Again, as I've mentioned before, these are precarious times. All right, folks, we'll be back tomorrow. I'll be here. Don't worry. Sam@whatsrightshow.com. Send me your emails, your thoughts on this topic or others, and I will address it tomorrow if there's something I can respond to. Okay, gotta run. It's time to go. Mark Levin, the great one, up next. Sam Mirejovsky here, News Talk 840 KXNT. The program brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.